The Bible has over 300 references to prophets, but almost no one can name more than 5 of them off the top of their head. We remember Moses, maybe Elijah, maybe Jonah because of the whale. But there's a whole structure behind this: categories, functions, even a chronology that connects one prophet to another in a way that no one usually explains properly. So let's settle this once and for all. Who were all these prophets, in fact, and what was each of them really doing there? Let's start by organizing by category, because that already helps a lot to clear up the mental mess that most of us carry on this subject. First, the major prophets, a somewhat misleading name because it doesn't mean they were more important, only that their books are longer. There are 4: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. Then come the minor prophets, 12 in total, with much shorter books, but with equally weighty messages, from Hosea to Malachi. And before all that, there are the prophets who appear within the historical books, without having a book dedicated to their own name: Moses, Samuel, Elijah, Elisha. Wait, so prophet isn't just someone who wrote a book with their own name? Exactly. Being a prophet in the Bible is a function, speaking in the name of God, not necessarily an authorial role. Moses is undoubtedly the starting point. Deuteronomy 34 days clearly states, "Never again has there arisen in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face." Notice that expression, face to face. This is said of very few figures in the entire Bible, and it places Moses on a level of closeness to God that no other prophet after him will reach in the same way. He not only received messages, he received the law itself, directly, on Mount Sinai. Then comes a leap in time to Samuel, the last of the judges and the first of a lineage of prophets who will be directly linked to the monarchy of Israel. It is Samuel who anoints Saul, the first king, and then anoints David, still a boy, chosen from among his older and stronger brothers. Because, as the text records, the Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. This phrase alone practically defines the role of the prophet from then on. Someone who sees beyond appearances, because he is seeing with the eyes of God. Elijah enters the scene soon after, in one of the most dramatic scenes in the entire Bible: the solo confrontation against 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. 1 Kings 18. 2 altars, 2 sacrifices, and the simple question, which God will answer with fire? Baal's remains silent. Elijah's altar, deliberately soaked with water to leave no doubt, is completely consumed by fire falling from the sky. And yet, immediately after this overwhelming victory, Elijah despairs and flees to the desert, wanting to die, fearing only one woman, Queen Jezebel. It's an incredible human detail. The same man who called down fire from heaven, a few chapters later, is at the bottom of an emotional pit. It shows that being a prophet doesn't shield anyone from fatigue, fear, or fragility. Elisha inherits Elijah's mantle. Literally, the text describes this passage in a very visual way, 2 Kings 2:13, and continues the work, but with a very different style. Fewer spectacular public confrontations, more everyday miracles, linked to the common lives of people. Multiplication of oil for a widow in debt, healing of a sick foreign general, resurrection of the son of a woman who had taken him in. It's almost a deliberate contrast between the two. Elijah, the thunder; Elisha, the constant rain. Moving on to the major prophets, Isaiah stands out for his breadth. He speaks of both judgment and messianic hope, with passages that the New Testament will repeatedly cite to point to Jesus, as the suffering servant of Isaiah 53. Jeremiah, known as the weeping prophet, carries a different emotional weight. He is called while still young. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you," Jeremiah 1:5, to announce the destruction of Jerusalem to a people who refuse to listen, and he himself suffers persecution, imprisonment, and rejection for decades, without ever seeing the people truly repent in his lifetime. Ezekiel uses even more surreal imagery: the vision of dry bones that come back to life, Ezekiel 37, symbolizing the restoration of a completely destroyed people. And Daniel operates in a totally different context from the others, exiled, serving within the pagan government of Babylon itself, interpreting dreams, and receiving visions that span entire empires, centuries into the future. Among the minor prophets, some deserve quick mention. Jonah, the only prophet who tries to flee his own mission by boarding a ship going in the opposite direction. swallowed by a great fish, and who ends the book angry, not because Nineveh did not repent, but because it did repent, and he did not want God to forgive Israel's enemies. Hosea, whose own life becomes a living metaphor. God commands him to marry an unfaithful woman to illustrate, in practice, the relationship between God and a people who repeatedly turn away. And Amos, a shepherd without formal religious training, who openly confronts the social injustice and religious hypocrisy of Israel with almost unfiltered language. Did you notice the pattern that repeats itself in almost all of them? No prophet had an easy life. Moses faced decades of complaints from the very people he was trying to save. Elijah fled in fear after the greatest victory of his career. Jeremiah wept for an entire people who refused to listen. Jonah resisted his own mission until the end. Being chosen by God, in this biblical logic, never meant a comfortable life. It almost always meant carrying a gigantic emotional weight, often alone, often misunderstood by the very people he was trying to reach. And perhaps that's what ties the whole list together. Being a prophet, in the Bible, isn't about predicting the future like some kind of magical gift. It's about carrying a difficult message, delivering it even when no one wants to hear it, and still standing, or sometimes crumbling along the way, like Elijah. Even so. So here's the question for you. Of all these prophets, which story impacted you the most? Elijah on Mount Carmel? Jonah fleeing his own mission? Or Jeremiah weeping for a people who refused to listen? Comment below with your opinion. I really want to know, and I'll see you in the next video.